Hi, good morning, good evening, namaste. Welcome back to the Jyotish Light YouTube channel, a channel where we try our best to research on birth charts based on the principles of Jyotish or Vedic Astrology. And so, what you find on this channel is a lot of research-based analysis and less of, as much as possible, less of generalized talk. Before starting out, first of all, thank you so much for spending time on the channel, giving us your positive encouragement and feedback. Please do subscribe to the channel if you feel it's of any value. It only encourages us to be motivated and do more. Now, before spending time on today's edition of research, I thought let me just take 15 seconds to just give a background of why I thought Sebastian Loeb will be a good example to spend more time into. Sebastian Loeb, as for some of you who may not be aware of who he is a French uh, uh, World Rally champion. Um, he's considered to be one of the greatest World Rally motorsport champions. And why I have found his chart to be interesting to further deep dive into was that beginning in 2004, when Loeb took his first title, he had 9 consecutive World Series championships till 2012. And this becomes interesting from a Jyotish or Vedic astrology standpoint is because if you look at his chart, which I'm going to pull up now, all of his World Series championships came in the major period of Moon. And so that begs the question, why was this Moon period so eligible and successful for him as a professional World Rally driver? And what were some of the factors in my limited view that contributed to him winning the championship back to back 9 times in a row? Now, for those of you who have some idea about how dashas work, the moon major period is for 10 years. So for him, it was from 2004 to 2014. Now, this, like in any other major period, it's divided into sub-periods, and typically in moon major periods case, each sub-period is roughly of 1 year plus minus something. And so let's just deep dive into this chart and then see why he became such a successful World Rally Championship driver. Now, straight off the bat, what we first do, of course, is to check the placement of the Lagna Lord and just the overall conditioning of the chart. Now, his Lagna Lord is Moon because he's a Cancer ascendant, and his Lagna Lord goes to the 10th house in the sign of Aries, which is ruled by Mars. And that becomes interesting because generally what I've seen again in my limited research is people who love fast cars or who have a fascination for driving fast uh, have Mars figuring somewhere in the mix of things. And for him, of course, Mars rules the 10th house, which is the house of career. And his Lagna Lord is going to the 10th house in the sign of Mars, which shows focus in that area of life. And I thought this was an interesting thing just in terms of why he could have gotten into a profession like professional motorsport. Now, the next thing we want to, so we saw that the Lagna Lord is in a great place. 10th house is probably the best house, along with the 9th house where you can have your Lagna Lord placed, just in terms of the overall conditioning of the ascendant. Um, the moon, of course, in Jyotish is a very neutral planet. So depending on its overall condition, it either takes the form of a good planet or a difficult planet to work with. In his case, it's not really a bright moon. It's 2 houses away from the sun, and typically The moon is great when it is a full moon, which is when the sun and the moon are opposite to each other. For him, it is a dark moon, but it is waxing. But I would still consider it a dark moon. However, the moon has a source of strength in the Navamsha. So if I pull up the Navamsha, which is what we look at to check the strength of planets as one of the things, the moon is exalted in the sign of Taurus, and moon, as you see here, is in the sign of Taurus. Now, that brings me to the next question in terms of looking at the conditions of all the planets in his chart. And if you see here, let's start with the sun. The sun is in Aquarius, and it continues to be in the sign of Aquarius in Navamsha, so it is Vargotama. Uh, Mars is involved in an exchange with Saturn in Navamsha, so both Mars and Saturn get sources of strength in that ways. Moon, as we saw, is exalted in the Navamsha. There is also an exchange between Saturn and Mercury in the main birth chart, because we see Mercury in Aquarius, Saturn in Gemini, and so both Saturn and Mercury get sources of strength. Jupiter, as my teacher would quote K.N. Rao, becomes very strong in the sign of Aquarius to, it's as good as an exalted planet. And so what you find here is you have the Sun, Moon, Mercury, Saturn, Mars, Jupiter all having some source of strength. And we'll see Venus becomes very strong in the chart of his career, which is the Dashamsha or the D10 chart. So practically, I would say all planets are having some source of strength, which is interesting because, like I said, his uh, uh, his world championship wins were 9 years back to back, and if you see the sequence of the sub periods that contributed, you'll see most of them having a source of strength, which came in as a part of the sub period sequence. Now, let me quickly pull up the moon chart again, because when we study yogas and what planets have to bring, we study it both from the birth lagna and from the moon chart. Now, from the moon chart, there is a 110 Raj Yoga formed by the moon. Mars becomes a yoga karaka in the sense it rules both the trine house, which is the fifth house here, and the 10th house, and so it doesn't need to combine with any planet to give its results. And Mars, as we saw earlier, has a source of strength in the Navamsha. There is a Viparit Raj Yoga formed by Saturn and Mercury. And Viparit Raj Yoga is when the planets ruling the trik houses, which is the 6, 8, 12, which are difficult houses generally, the rulers of their these houses go into another trik house. So you see the 8th lord going to the 12th house, you see the 12th lord going into the 8th house, and I feel that had a role to play in his elevation just from the birth lagna. Now, the thing about Viparit Rajayogas is they don't operate like standard Rajayogas. They come, they give success, but they come with their share of struggles or obstacles before providing any success. But the chart becomes really interesting from the Chandra Lagna, where you see this 11th house getting really strong with the Sun, Mercury, Jupiter all having sources of strength, as well as the 11th Lord Saturn. And 11th house, as you know, is the house of gains, recognition, honors, and I feel that had something to do with him getting all these, accolades. Now, quickly, like I said, before moving into the Dashamsha chart, we began with Moon. Moon, as you know, forms Rajayogas both from the Lagna as well as the Chandra Lagna. Mars was a Yoga Karaka. Jupiter had a source of strength. I think Jupiter contributed to the activation of Viparit Raj Yoga, which was followed by Saturn, Mercury, and so on and so forth. Now, let me pull up the D10 chart, which is the chart for profession. And the reason why I pull that up is if you see his official birth record time, it's actually 1535 in France. He's a French national, of course. Now, if I make it 1535, let me just, what you see on the chart right now is 1537, but if I make it 1535, the Shamsha changes. It's right on the edge. And generally, what we say for divisional charts is when planets are in angles, they tend to be generally more favorable. I mean, it's not a hard and fast rule, but it's generally considered to be good. And if I change the time to 1537, which I'm changing now, you see all these planets coming into the angle houses, with Jupiter in its own stride in Pisces, Venus in its own sign, Sun getting directional strength, Moon becomes exalted again. And so I feel just in terms of the placement of the Lagna Lord as well in the ninth house, this is a much more appealing D10 chart for me. And this also probably was one of the reasons why it contributed to the success. So I hope you like this brief short analysis on Sebastian Loeb. It's a very interesting chart in terms of just, I don't think there are many charts you'll find where a person had such a 9-year winning streak on top of their game. And so in that sense, it becomes really interesting to study. So I hope you got something positive out of it. Please do subscribe to our channel and please do keep providing your feedback. Thank you so much.